Hello everybody, this is Chromisco018, and this is going to be my thoughts on My Hero Academia Season 2, Episode 20. This episode, essentially the main thing that happens is All Might telling Midoriya about the origin of the quirk One for All, which is the one, obviously the quirk that they've got. And little things that happened, like everybody talking about how their internships went, Kirishima and Kaminari laughing at Bakugo with his thing, his stupid hairstyle. I'm sorry, it's still funny. That hairstyle does not suit Bakugo in the slightest. Anyway, yeah, everybody, Todoroki, Ida, and Midoriya have to keep quiet about what happened with the hero killer, because obviously if they didn't, they'd go to jail, because they weren't allowed to use their quirks in public, which, like I said before in a previous episode, that makes no sense. The law should have had a clause in it where there's an exception where if you are in a life or death situation and you have to use your quirk to protect somebody, like what they were in, and they could possibly get like I don't know, community service as punishment. That should be what's in the law. That's what they should do, because that would make more sense. Because otherwise, people would die thanks to villains if that law wasn't in place, because the kids wouldn't have been allowed to use their quirks. So yeah. Anyway, All Might ends up having them do another exercise to culminate what they've actually learned. Not actually what they learned, but just to get them going again, because it's been a week since they had classes. There would be like different groups where they'd have to try and race each other to get to where All Might is, saying help. And obviously the first person who gets there wins, and they get, I guess, a little sash or something. Anyway, nobody was expecting what Midoriya pulled out. Yeah, he started doing what he did in the episodes where the hero killer was in, and he would have probably gotten there first had he been watching his footing and where he was jumping, and he slipped off and fell. And yeah, he needs to learn to watch where he's going when he's jumping like that, especially in a factory area like that where there's many places where you can essentially lose your footing if you're not careful. But yeah, I found it funny how everybody was shocked at what Midoriya could do now that he was back from his internship, because yeah, he learned a lot. He learned a whole lot, considering the fact that he wasn't breaking any bones at all. And that was impressive considering what he was doing already in the sports festival. Anyway. Yeah, after that, All Might calls him into the teacher's lounge so he could tell Midoriya about what happened with essentially the origin story of One for All. And we find out that about All for One, which is the villain that can take steal quirks from people, leaving them without their quirks, and then either keep them for himself or give them to his minions or people he wants to submit to him, essentially. And we find out that people who couldn't handle the new quirks in their bodies ended up becoming like the Nomu. Which makes sense. Anyway, what else? Apparently All for One had a younger brother who was they thought was quirkless. But apparently he did have a quirk, though I'm guessing it was either dormant or it was just, like I said, it was a useless quirk to where he could only pass down quirks, which makes sense as to why it didn't show, because what would you pass down? I mean, hello. If it's the only quirk you've got, which normally someone either only has one quirk or they have half a quirk that they inherit from their parents, like Todoroki's case. Anyway, yeah, if you've only got that quirk, that gives you the ability to pass down quirks. What are you going to pass down? So it makes sense as to why it never showed itself, because what are you going to show? at least with other quirks, when they show up, you know they show up. This one, you wouldn't have known. And his brother actually gave him a quirk, which was the ability to stockpile power. It was either wanting to give him a quirk in general, or essentially make him submit and do what he wants. Which, apparently the younger brother is essentially the opposite of All for One, because he wants to be... essentially has a strong sense of justice, which means he, would be like a hero, and All for One is obviously the villain. And apparently, quirks can combine to make other quirks, because that's how One for All came to be, because the stockpiling quirk and the quirk that allows you to pass on quirks, they combined and made All for One. And it's not All for One, One for All. I'm getting my quirks mixed up. Yeah. That's how One for All came to be. And All for One was actually the one who started, I guess, the League of Villains way back when, which, if anybody could give me an idea of how long ago that was when it all started, that'd be great, because I assume it was several generations back, like around Midoriya's, let's see, maybe great-great-grandfather or somewhere around there is when all that started, around his generation. If I'm wrong, let me know, because I don't know the timeline for this show. All I know is the present. That's all I know. And apparently, the younger brother passed on his quirk, One for All, to who he thought would be, successful at defeating his brother and, stopping him once and for all. And it kept on building and building as it getting passed down to each successor. And then when All Might got it, he actually managed to beat All for One, or at least that's what he thought. And actually, I don't think he mentions it in the show, or at least not in the English dub anyway, but that's actually how he got that injury that's, weakening him, that he mentioned in the second episode. That was from the battle with All for One. He got careless, and he got hurt in the process. He defeated All for One, but he got hurt really badly, obviously, and that's what's all with that. Anyway, he tells Midoriya essentially that the purpose for One for All is to someday defeat All for One, because we know All for One is back in business, because how else are they giving the Nomus multiple quirks? There's no other quirk that we know of other than All for One that can do that. Actually, if All for One had that same quirk that the younger brother had, the useless one that could pass on quirks, no, actually, I was gonna say, if someone else had... Here's a question for you guys to ponder, for those fans of My Hero Academia. Since there are multiple copies of quirks, like, for example, near the end of season 1, where we see that villain that's holding Kaminari hostage against Momo and Jiro, he can use electricity. Kaminari can use electricity. So, here's a question. It's more than likely either very rare or next to impossible, but is it possible for there to be a duplicate, someone else out there who could possibly have All for One? And if so, I wonder if the developers would actually use that as a plot twist in the show. And if they have, don't spoil it. But it'd be interesting if they did, if that's actually possible in this world. Because if it is, then we've got a way for... Never mind, I almost spoiled something for Season 3. Thank goodness I caught myself. I was like, wait, that hasn't happened yet in the upload schedule yet. Because I'm only on to episode 20 at the moment for Season 2. And this happens, what I'm talking about happens in Season 3. Anyway, yeah, he tells Midoriya that the purpose of One for All is to someday be strong enough to defeat All For One once and for all, and essentially either kill him or put him behind bars for the rest of his life. Then again, if he were to somehow get him in prison, more than likely, considering he's the main villain, he's probably not going to stay there long. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he's a big bad guy, for crying out loud. Even if he was somehow captured, probably wouldn't last. Anyway, wherever the guy shows up, because actually in the end of this episode, you actually do get to possibly see All For One. At the end, where he's talking about Shigaraki. Anyway, back to where I was at the moment. Midoriya obviously said that he would try and defeat All For One, and that he would do his best, considering All Might would be at his side, and All Might kind of hesitated at wanting to tell him something, and he actually wasn't able to tell him, so Midoriya left, and we find out that by the time that Midoriya is strong enough to face All For One, most likely either All Might will be retired and not able to fight, or he will be dead. Either one of those two is not good, considering Midoriya's admiration of All Might. Either one of those things is bad, but the dead part is worse. Because at least if All Might is retired, he's alive. But yeah, I think that was more than likely what All Might was struggling to tell Midoriya, that he said, I need to tell him. But yeah, anyway, we find out in the end of the episode that summer break is coming up for them, and if they actually manage to pass their finals, they get to go to a, I guess, summer vacation where they get to work on their essentially training. And everybody's all excited about it, and I'm guessing the next few episodes, the rest of the episodes of this season are going to be probably the final exams. Anyway, if I missed anything in this episode, please let me know, and what you think of this episode as well, and I will see everybody next time.